Hello, everyone. Mr. Riley here. Yes, I'm wearing a hoodie and a hipster driver's cap thing. Teachers wear normal clothes from time to time. Cope with that fact, okay? Anyway, welcome. We're talking spreadsheets today. Spreadsheets, Google Sheets specifically, there is a Microsoft version that's Excel. But these spreadsheets are perhaps my favorite thing within a Google Drive. Let's call it my second favorite thing. I do love Google Drawings. Google Drawings are the best, but let's avoid that tangent for right now. So Google Sheets are great. Data is your friend. Spreadsheets are your friend. And the best way to manage and understand and calculate all that data is in Google Sheets. So that's what we're going to do today. So hopefully you guys are already here. You're at the Mad Libs Budget Challenge. I do hope you've read the introduction, you know what your challenge is, and you've actually already at this point completed part 1 and 2. So if we dive over and take a look at this, here's what we're looking at. You should have filled in your responses here, your various answers. Now, it'll take some scrolling and some copy and paste type stuff, but you should at this point have some kind of cohesive story. It might not make perfect sense. It is a Mad Libs activity after all, but it should have some kind of cohesive plot to it. Basically, here's what we've got. We've got this first paragraph, which is all about income. Okay, so that's the things that you do, your various chores and activities that that gain you an income. Okay, and in the second paragraph, these are all your expenses. Not only do you have expenses, but at the tail end here, you have this dream vacation and the estimated amount that it's going to cost you to get there. Now, based off all this information, it's really hard to know exactly how much money you're making, how much money you're spending, and then how much money you're saving towards this ultimate goal. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive over into a Google spreadsheet. We're going to set up a couple tables and calculate all this information. So let's go ahead and do that. For this, I am going to need a chair. So let's see if I can do it like all you cool young kids. All right, and we're off. Oh, one more thing. Go time. All right, so we're in Google Drive. Let's go ahead and head over to New and select Google Sheets. Okay, as always, it's the cardinal sin of anything Google Drive to leave it untitled. So let's call this. All right, and you can do the same. The first thing we want to do is set up a few tables. You'll see that we've got our spreadsheet view. We have our columns like so, columns A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. And then we've got our rows this way, rows 1 through infinity, basically. So there's a few things that we want to add. There's actually one thing we're going to do first. This is just a little bit more of a formatting kind of logistics thing just for the activity. So let's go ahead and do this first. I'm going to go ahead and merge these two cells like so. And I'm just going to call this Mr. Riley's. One more thing, just for the premise of this activity, we're going to need to know a few things about days and weeks, and depending on the month that you're referring to, they all have a different number of days and weeks and all that stuff. But this is just a practice activity, so let's just go ahead and leave this as a generic time frame, okay? So within this average month, we're going to say number of weeks and number of months. Okay, now take a look here. Do you see how it overflowed just a little bit? There's a few different formatting things we can do for this. The one thing that we can do is we can clip this so it actually kind of cuts off within that cell. We could wrap it. So if we come down here and wrap it, you'll see that it bumps it down to the next line. And then the last thing we can do, and you can only get away with this when it's just barely overlapping, you can't just increase the width of the column a little bit. I would caution you against that, doing that anything like, too extreme. It's going to really throw off the feng shui of your spreadsheet. So if you've got to fudge it just a little bit every now and then, that's okay. Just don't get too carried away with anything like that. So I'm going to add 4. So just generally speaking, we're going to have 4 weeks in a month and 30 days. Take special note here. Look, these two right here, the only thing within this cell is a number. If you add something like 4 weeks or something like that, you're going to mess up the formulas in the near future, okay? So add only the number, okay? There should be nothing else in these cells than the number. Okay, let's set up a few tables, okay? So tables are, they are data tables. They're basically, your various kind of a series of cells within this larger spreadsheet that you set up and color code and things like that. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call this income. So we're going to set up one table here. I'm going to start at cell A5, and I'm going to highlight all the way across 3 cells total. And I'm going to come up to my toolbar, and I'm going to select this option right here to merge these cells. I'm going to, in here, I'm going to call it income. We can change the font if we so choose. We can make that font larger, and we can also format it so it is centered. Okay, so now that we've got this income section set up, we're going to add some information, and then we're going to go back and kind of clean it up and make it a little bit more visually significant. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our chores here. So chore, the rate at which I get paid, and then we're going to say the monthly. Now this is just a little bit of an aside, but you can see that I've got capitals here and no capitals there. That's you got to have some continuity. So let's fix that now. Okay, so these are kind of like titles in themselves, so let's go ahead and center these. Okay, so now let's record some of these chores. When I hop back over here, you can see that the first thing on this list that actually grants me any money is doing the dishes, so I should actually kind of highlight that. Okay, so we'll put that in a different color. So doing the dishes is the first thing on this list that actually grants me any kind of income, and I get 75 cents a day for it. So not a lot of money, but I don't get any money to do it in real life. So I guess I'm coming out on top in this activity. So dishes. And I get 0.75 a day, 75 cents a day, and there it is. Okay, the next thing I have to do is walk the children. If you know anything about children, if they don't get enough exercise during the day, it creates an environment of chaos in the evening. So yes, this is very much a real thing. I gotta walk my children on a daily basis, and that gets me $6.83 each week. So let's go ahead and record that. Okay, so I think you guys get this point. Just bear with me for a moment while I get the rest of this information cataloged. Okay, so now that I've got my monthly rates set up, I'm just going to add one last section, right like so. And let's go ahead and clean this up. Let's start making it look like a table, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to highlight all of this like so. I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to start adding some borders as needed. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight this entire thing, make this one solid outer border. Okay, the income, that's kind of our title section, so I'm going to add a line and make it kind of its own box. And you know what I'm also going to do? Let's start color coding it. So I'm going to go with like just kind of generic color here. Okay, now within this, let's add a few more internal lines. So let's actually do this. I'm going to come up here to my borders again. I'm going to select inner borders. But before I do that, I'm going to change the border style to this dotted line. And now select my inner borders. Okay, and we actually do have one last thing. Let's add this, but I'm going to switch this back into my line and one box. So basically you can see the table that we've got running here. We've got our table that is completely encircled by a solid line, our monthly total right here, also kind of a separate line. Okay, so now you can kind of see that we've got our designated title going, and it looks something like this. Okay, so go ahead, if you haven't taken the time, go ahead and use that border option to start making a table. Okay, so at this point you can see that I've got my income table set up. So I suppose it's time to just go ahead before we start calculating anything. Let's go ahead and set up our expense table as well. It's going to look pretty much identical to this, so tag along while I do that. Okay, so there it is. I've got two tables set up. I've got one table dedicated to my income, FYI, that's paragraph 1, and then I've got one activity dedicated to my expenses, and that's paragraph 2. Okay, so now let's get into calculating this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate our income. Now take a look here. When we talk about rates, some of these things I get paid for on a daily rate. For instance, washing the dishes, I get paid 75 cents a day. Whereas walking the children, I get $6.83 a week. So one of the things that's going to be super important is to know how much I make per month. So here's what we're going to do. The things that I get a daily rate for, I'm going to color code, and that's to help me remember. So up here, number of weeks, let's actually go color code this. You can choose any color you want. I'm going to just select kind of this like forest green here. That might be a little too dark. Let's go up a rate there. Okay, and this one right here, let's go with kind of an orangish color. Okay, so I've got my number of weeks and my number of months color coded. Let's do the same thing for our income. So our chores, are washing the dishes, that is a daily. So I'm going to use this and say, and just go ahead and go down the list. Okay, and you can actually stop there. You can see the Lego figurines of your favorite famous person. That's just a flat monthly fee. So that's actually not going to be a per day or per week income. That's just one flat monthly fee. Okay, so let's start figuring out how much we make for each of these. And here's the beautiful thing about spreadsheets. We're going to start using some formulas. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, we want to convert all of these over to currency. So I'm just going to select all the numbers here in my table and click on this Format as Currency button in the toolbar. I can jump ahead and go ahead and do this over here as well. Okay, so let's do some calculations. Quick disclaimer, I know that we have calculators. Some of you guys might be expert mathematicians and you can do all this in your head. But it's really important that you learn these formulas, because the formulas give you a real-time number. They're always updating. It's not just, whether or not you can do the math. It's how well the spreadsheet functions based off of changes and things like that. I'll spare you some of those details right now. Just know that these formulas are super important to know, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So my dishes. So I'm going to set up my formula here. I get 75 cents a day for 30 days. So how much is that? I come here, I select my cell. For me, that is cell C7. If you followed along perfectly with me, you're in cell C7 as well. But if you switch stuff up a little bit, your cell numbers might be a bit off, just as a fair warning. So here's my formula. The first thing we do when we hit a formula, all formulas start like this, equals. In a math class, that's normally at the end. In a spreadsheet, that comes first, because that's the code. That's the key to the spreadsheet, to Google Sheets, saying, hey, I want you to calculate something. I want you to perform a function. So I'm going to hit equals sum. Okay, so that is basically that's the code for please do some math for me. So I'm going to select sum, and I want to select my rate, which is 75 cents a day. You notice that when I click on it, it says cell B7. This is super critical that I click on this. I don't just type in 0.75. I select cell B7. I want to multiply this. So that is the multiply sign is Shift 8. You should get this little star. And I want to multiply it by 30 days. And that is cell B3. I close the brackets. And FYI, that is Shift 0. Close the brackets. And I now know how much I make a month doing dishes. 75 cents a day to do dishes doesn't really seem like a lot, but at the end of the month, you're making $20, $22.50 to be precise. That's not a bad amount. Okay, so we've got a few more formulas to do. Let's practice again. Now this one is a weekly rate. This time I'm going to select equals sum, close the parenthesis, or open the parentheses, select my cell, multiplied by 4. Okay. Now, take a look here. Here's why way back in the beginning I said these cells have to be on their own. If I were to switch any of this, so if this were 4 weeks, like I explained, it's not going to work. The spreadsheet won't be able to decipher the difference between the number and the letter within that cell. So it's super critical that it's only numerical value in here. Let's switch that back, and you can see it comes back. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and calculate the rest of these really quick. Let's go ahead and get that done. Okay, and as I stated before, your figurines, there's just a flat monthly fee. So there's nothing that you need to calculate. I'm just going to hit Control C and Control V to paste. And there we are. Okay, so how much did we make? Let's add all this up, okay? So here's what we're going to do. Equals sum. Okay, that's how we know. We're telling the spreadsheet that we want to do math. Now, here's the cool part. Instead of adding all this stuff up or anything like that, I'm just going to click at the top, drag to the bottom, close my parentheses, and there's my monthly income. Okay, so it's time to move on to expenses. Now, I did something very specific. When you take a look at the actual monthly expenses, they are all a weekly rate. So you go once a week to buy your favorite snack from Circle K or wherever. You do that once a week, so that's $4.99 a week, right? You spend whatever your favorite store is, you spend that much a week. They're all weekly rates. All right, so let's go take a look at our table. Now, because they're all weekly rates, we can actually just color code it to be our weekly rate, which is kind of this like forest green, I suppose. All right. And there it is. So let's do some math. And because it's just this one number, we can do something really cool. All right. So equals, just like all of our formulas, equals sum. We want to do some math. We're going to select our cell. So that's F7 for me, multiplied by B2, close parentheses. But before we go any further, let's come up here to our formula bar, and we're going to do something kind of special. We're going to add a dollar sign in front there, and a dollar sign in front there. And basically what we're saying is for all the next series of equations, this is the only cell that we want to be talking about. So we're going to multiply the rest of these by that cell and that cell only. Okay, and that's the meaning of the dollar sign. It doesn't really have anything to do with money. It's just a code literally code in a Google spreadsheet. Okay, so now what we can do, Google's getting smart. Did you see that? It had an autofill function. I'm going to skip that because that makes life too easy. Okay, but speaking of life being easy, because we use that dollar sign, because those are there, we can come right back here. Now look here, do you see this little blue square down here? I'm going to select that. My cursor turns into this kind of this crosshair type thing. I'm going to click and drag all the way down, and my job is done. Okay, one last thing, equals sum. Okay, so that's how much I spend. All right, at this point, we know how much we make each month. We know how much we spend each month. Hopefully that number is less, which means you're actually saving money. You're making more money than you're saving, or you're making more money than you're spending, and that, after all, is kind of how it's supposed to work in life, okay? So what we got to do now, let's make one last table. We've got a goal, right? Why are we saving money? Well, because it's important, but what we want to be doing right now, we want to know how much, how long it's going to take us to actually save up to get to this amount, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start another kind of sub-table down in this area. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right down below. You know, the formula is you have to make sure that you're clicking on the right spot. It doesn't have to be in the exact same spot, but this is where I'm going to set up my savings. Okay, so I'm going to merge these two cells. I'm going to call this savings. And because I am making a table, I'm going to do all the things that our table requires. I'm going to do all this fancy stuff. Okay. All right, so the first thing we want to calculate will be our monthly savings. How much are we saving each month? Okay, the next thing we're going to want to calculate, how much are we saving each year? Your dream location, how much do you think it's going to cost for you to take that dream vacation? So dream, let's just call it vacation. And last one, it'll be years needed to save, okay? Okay, so let's keep with our continuity and set up our borders and things like that. So here we go. Okay, so our monthly savings, let's have the spreadsheet do the math for us. So our monthly savings is a pretty simple formula. You should be able to do this in your head. If you can't, well, that's what the spreadsheet is for. So equals sum, and I'm going to select this number minus, and that's right next to the 0 key on your keyboard, this right here. Okay, so we're saving $83.77 a month. Okay, how much is that yearly? So let's set up another formula. Okay, so I'm going to select this and multiply. Now this time there's no other cell that we want to multiply. We just want to know how much a year that is. So that's 83.77 a month multiplied by 12 months in the year. So I'm just going to add the number 12 right there. And I'm saving $1,000, a little over $1,000 every single year. My dream location is Norway. I really, really want to see Norway. The fjords of Norway, nothing better. Now, I'm a family man. I've got a wife and children, and I'm more than confident that there's no way I'd be able to take all four of us to Norway for only $5,000. So maybe I don't know, maybe I'm splitting that with my wife, but ballpark, I'm just going to say it's going to cost me about $5,000 to save up. So I'm going to type in here $5,000. Okay, I'm going to format that as a currency. Oh, and you know what? Yeah, we're good. Okay, so years needed. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one last division. So we are at equals sum. Our total cost, $5,000. For me, that's cell G18. But again, you don't have to type that in. Just click on it. And this time we're going to divide. So that's the slash. It shares the key with the question mark. So look for that slash. And I'm going to divide it by this right here. I'm going to close. Okay. And that's 4.97. Now look how long this division is, right? Our decimals. We don't need quite that many decimals. So let's just go ahead and get rid of some of those. So I'm going to hop up here to see the decreased decimal. It's like this little arrow. It's only got 0.0 instead of the additional there. So let's decrease those. Each click reduces the decimal once. So let's keep that 4.97 years. So we're clocking in at just about 5 years to get there. And voila, we're done. 4.97 years to save up for my dream vacation to Norway. Now, hopefully there's two major takeaways for you in this activity. The first one is the value of spreadsheets. You can take this kind of convoluted amount of information and data, organize it, categorize it, and use the formulas to do the math for you. And it'll do so in real time. Let's just take a brief moment and just change one number. What if I change this from $4.99 a month to, let's say, $8.99 a month, right? It automatically changes the information for you. I increased my wasabi peas. I doubled the cost of my wasabi peas each month, right? It went from $4.99 a month to $8.99 a month. And look at that, it bumped my years needed to save to 6.15. So if I saw that and said, whoa, I'm done with wasabi. I mean, I like wasabi peas, but not that much, right? So what if I got rid of that expense altogether, right? Now I've cut my time of savings significantly by a year almost. So you can see the functionality of real-time spreadsheets. The next thing, stashing away and this is just a little bit of a life lesson, stashing away just a little bit of money, if you can do that each month and actually leave it there, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, but it adds up quick and it snowballs on you. So using a spreadsheet for like long-term budgetary goals, and just long-term budgetary goals in general, they're much more valuable than you realize. At this point, you're done, so go ahead and get that spreadsheet turned in, and I hope you enjoyed this activity, and all the best. Namaste.